They never found the bodies, not one. No life raft, no emergency beacon, no final call for help. Just scattered debris, a broken fuel drum, a torn life vest, a cracked length of railing. The sea swallowed everything else. A crew of 6 men vanished in one of the worst maritime storms ever recorded. They'd left Gloucester chasing swordfish. Instead, they sailed into legend. The Andrea Gail was a steel-hulled longliner, 72 feet of weathered iron, a workhorse of the New England fishing fleet. She wasn't fast, she wasn't pretty, but she'd seen storms before. She'd held steady in freezing rain, under punishing waves, through countless voyages that blurred into aching backs and salt-stung skin. Captain Billy Tyne had helmed her through many of them. At 37, he was already a veteran of the sea, confident, stubborn, and under pressure. Recent trips had been poor. The catch wasn't there. The money wasn't coming in. Swordfish season was waning, and expectations were high. He'd been offered another boat, a better deal, but he stayed with the Andrea Gail. Loyalty, pride, desperation, maybe all three. On September 20th, 1991, Tyne and his crew pushed off from the harbor at Gloucester, Massachusetts, heading east toward the Grand Banks. With him were 5 men: Bobby Shatford, David Sully Sullivan, Dale Murph Murphy, Michael Bugsy Moran, and Alfred Pierre. Some were close friends, others were hired hands. All of them were gamblers in the brutal game of deep-sea fishing. They left behind wives, girlfriends, children, promises. Bobby Shatford had kissed his girlfriend, Christina Cotter, goodbye that morning. She didn't want him to go. He didn't either, not really. But a few $1,000s in fish could change a man's winter. The trip out was long and dull. Cold spray, dead air, hauling lines that came up empty. The crew passed time in the galley, playing cards and talking trash, drinking stale coffee and complaining about the food. Out at sea, days stretch. Sleep disappears. The noise of the engine becomes background to everything. By the second week, morale was sinking. The catch was light. The weather was turning. Tyne made a decision, one that would later be dissected 100 ways. He turned the Andrea Gail toward the Flemish Cap. The Flemish Cap was farther out, riskier, isolated, but it was known among fishermen as the place to go when everything else came up short, and this time, it paid off. The crew hauled in load after load of fat, heavy swordfish. It was the break they needed, enough to make the trip worthwhile. Spirits lifted. Plans were made for what they'd do back on land. Then the ice machine broke. It wasn't just a nuisance. On a longliner, the ice machine is the lifeline. Without it, fish rot. And rotten catch means wasted time and no paycheck. They were sitting on a small fortune of fresh fish with no way to preserve it. They had a choice. They could stay out, fish longer, and risk losing the haul, or head back now, make a hard run west, and try to beat the weather. Captain Tyne chose the latter. But back on shore, the weather was already gathering. A cold front was moving east from the Great Lakes. At the same time, a low-pressure system had formed off the Carolinas. From the Atlantic, the dying remnants of Hurricane Grace were still spinning. As meteorologists watched the satellite data, they realized something terrifying. The systems were converging, 3 weather fronts, merging into a single explosive storm. A nor'easter with hurricane-force winds, unpredictable pressure shifts, and waves taller than a 4-story building. It was a once-in-a-century event, a perfect storm. By the time word spread to the boats still at sea, most had already begun returning to port. Those within a few hundred miles of the coast could make it in time. But the Andrea Gail, positioned over 500 miles offshore, was in a tightening vice. They were racing west at full throttle. The last known contact came on the evening of October 28th. Captain Tyne radioed the Hannah Bowden, a sister ship also returning from the Cap. He reported 30-foot seas and rising. His tone was calm, tired, focused. "She's coming on, boys," he said, "and she's coming on strong." And then the radio went silent. No one knows exactly what happened in the hours that followed. There are theories, models, simulations, but only the sea knows the truth. What we do know is that the storm intensified faster than forecasters predicted. Winds exceeded 90 knots. Buoys off the coast recorded wave heights over 60 feet. Some swells may have reached as high as 100, and the Andrea Gail, already overloaded with fish and running without ice, was at the mercy of it all. She was not a fast ship, not a sleek one. Her high bow made her ride heavy in rough weather. If a wave hit just right, if the engine stalled, or if she lost trim, or if she took on water through the scuppers, she could have capsized in seconds. The storm surged across the Atlantic, hammering everything in its path. Reports came in from freighters, tankers, and weather ships, all of them struggling, even those 3 times her size. One vessel, a 578-foot container ship, nearly sank after being hit by what it described as a wall of black water. The Andrea Gail stood no chance. When she missed her scheduled return, the Coast Guard launched search and rescue operations. C-130 aircraft flew endless grid patterns. Helicopters hovered over whitecaps. Patrol cutters scanned the ocean from the George Bank to Nova Scotia. They found pieces: a lone fuel drum, a length of fishing line, a section of aluminum railing, a nameplate, but not the boat, not the men. Not a single body was ever recovered. Back in Gloucester, families gathered at the docks. The mood turned from anxious to hollow. In fishing towns, grief takes the form of silence, of cups left untouched, of doors that never open. Christina Cotter stood on the harbor wall each day, watching the horizon. She had written Bobby a letter. He never read it. She never saw him again. The Andrea Gail became a kind of myth, a cautionary tale, a ghost ship whispered about in stormy bars. The men aboard became symbols of a way of life, hardened, hopeful, desperate for a win in a trade that offered few. Billy Tyne was remembered as a captain who pushed too far, too fast. Some blamed him, others defended him. But those who knew the sea best said the same thing. When you're that far out, the storm chooses the ending, not the man. The tragedy sparked a bestseller. The Perfect Storm by Sebastian Junger brought the story to readers worldwide. Later, a Hollywood film immortalized the crew. The details were dramatized, sure, but the bones were real. The loss, the heartbreak, the desperation, none of that had to be written in. Today, Gloucester keeps the names carved in granite. At the Fisherman's Memorial, the bronze man leans forward, hands gripping the wheel, facing the same sea that took them. Below, the plaques: Tyne, William, Shatford, Robert, Sullivan, David, Moran, Michael, Murphy, Dale, Pierre, Alfred, 6 men, 1 boat, 1 storm too large. No wreck has ever been found. Some say she went down fast, rolled by a rogue wave. Others believe she stayed afloat for hours, fighting every swell. Maybe she was dragged down by her catch. Maybe the hull failed. Maybe the ocean simply had enough of her. Some fishermen say that when the wind is high and the tide is rough, you can still hear her engine, feel her presence on the waves. A shadow behind the fog, a chill on the air. Every year on the anniversary of the storm, Gloucester holds a ceremony. Candles are lit, bells are rung, boats sound their horns out into the deep as if trying to call her home. She doesn't answer. She never will. Somewhere, under miles of dark water, beneath layers of silt and sand, the Andrea Gail rests, her hull twisted, her mast broken, her cargo long dissolved, her wheel unmoving, but her story floats, a caution to those who tempt the sea, a warning to those who think the ocean can be tamed. and a reminder that no matter how brave the crew or strong the vessel, there are forces in this world that do not forgive. And sometimes they come on strong. Thank you for listening to The Sunken Ledger. Subscribe for more true stories from the depths.